My guest today is Mr. Mark Anthony Little. First Assistant Director Mark Anthony Little has worked in Hollywood behind the scenes in over 70 films and television shows. He has worked on many iconic films such as Coming to America 2, One Night in Miami, Coach Carter, and Paranormal Activity. In 2004, Mark won a Black Reel Award for his work on the television miniseries Deacons of Defense. Mark, how you doing today?
I'm great, man. I'm great.
Hey, I want to thank you for coming on my show. I know you're a busy person, and this means a lot to me. You're probably working right now as we speak, so it's a pleasure to have you on my show.
Thank you, man.
So,
Pleasure to be here.
yeah. So let me ask you, how long have you been a first AD?
I've been doing this since '92, and pretty soon after I started in this business, probably within the first year I started ADing, I would say my first project ever was as a director's assistant, and I was in a moment where I had sold a company that I had, and I was going to go back to college for med school, and I pretty much told myself, my wife, I said, I'm going to give myself a year to figure out either I'm going to go back to college or something else. And that something else was this business. And it started off, there was a director who was looking for an assistant, and it said, learn the business, no pay. And it seemed old school and, the type of thing that I wanted. I wanted to apprentice actually in something. I wanted to start off and learn it. And I felt like the fact that it was no pay for me at the time was perfect. It just was perfect because they didn't owe me anything and I didn't owe them anything. And I could do what I wanted in a sense. I could work as hard as I wanted, and they weren't paying me. So what were they going to do? Fire me?
Right.
So I did that with this director, and his project fell apart with about 2.5 months I was working with him. But I was getting an overview of what he did. He was going from, he had a project, he had a movie that was being made, and he was going to Sony and to his management at this guy named Dan Aloni, and to the Gersh agency, which was his agent in Beverly Hills. And I was meeting these people and going back and forth and knowing zero about the movie business, nothing. And I was always studied English and I know how to write and all that. And I like it. I've watched movies as you have and everyone else has. But he said, hey, this movie is not going to happen. You want to work on a film set? And I literally didn't know what a set was. I just thought it was the studio or the stages. And I said, sure. And I think for one, because I had been running a company, I managed a courier business. I had 75 employees, and I had been doing that, and I'd started a helicopter company. So I feel like I had that skill set of management. So when I went to the first film set I'd ever been on, it just looked rather unorganized, sloppy, a lot of people standing around. And I walked into that like, okay, what can we do? How can we speed this up? What can we do to be efficient? And I got to tell you, in the first 2 days, they were like, can we pay you? Because it was no pay also.
Wow.
And they're like, can we pay you? Can you stay?
Mm-hmm.
And then every department on that show was asking for me to work for them. I worked as a grip. After that show, I worked on the show as a grip. I worked on the show as a rigging grip, hanging lights, and learning really, because I just asked 1,000 questions. I was a follow spot operator. And then that show, a lot of the people on that non-union, independent, low-budget movie that was actually directed by Shabba-Doo, if you remember him from the Pop Locking days.
Oh, definitely.
That movie, those people all moved up, as is typical with really low-budget movies, is everyone's trying to move up. And so someone said, hey, have you ever been a second AD? And I literally didn't know what a second AD was. And I said, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Said, yeah, I could do it. And I remember running to this was before Kinko's. There was the place called Enterprise Stationery, which was a entertainment industry They did Xeroxes. They would print scripts for people because no one could print a script at home. You didn't do that at home. And so I went there and I bought a book on production. And I remember asking about the call sheet and the production reports, and I knew I was going to have to do those. And at the time, I thought those were legal documents. I didn't realize this was something I'd have to do. And I asked the woman who was ahead of me, where do I get them? And she just said, figure it out. And that was it. Next thing I knew, I was working as an AD, and it just kept going. And from there on, um, I was sort of in demand. People were calling me, and I was working, and that's how it started.
Wow, that's a great story. I mean, you just recently was working on Coming to America too. You have a lot of iconic movies in your resume.
Mhm.
How was that? Is that something that you planned or just came about? How do you continue to be a part of these great projects?
Um, it started off. I mean, I would tell you that the first real movie. I mean, I would go back and forth from doing movies that you'll never hear of or see ever to I did a movie Demolition Man, for example, but I was a production assistant on that.
Okay.
So I would go back and forth from the Mighty Ducks as a PA to
Hmm.
doing some low budget movie as a first AD. And I did that until I got all of my days to come into the union. And one of the first films that I did that I would say most people have heard of was Love and Basketball.
Yes.
And so from there on, you know, I did that, and I got the hookup with Master P, and
Right.
I did you know, the Belly soundtrack music video that we worked like almost 20 hours a day for 3 days, and a rather dangerous situation too. I would never go back on
Uh,
that one.
uh,
Uh, but yeah, so I did a lot of that early in my career, and then I would do, I did the movie How High, I did American Wedding. It just kept going, Um, I would say um, I tried with my own career, and I always try to do something different and diversify myself and not pigeonhole myself into any one genre. I did Coach Carter, for example. I did sports movies. I did comedy. I would do horror. I always wanted to do something that I hadn't done yet, including a country western movie or
wow.
whatever. I always push myself so that if someone ever saw my resume, because again, they're seeing my resume before they've met me,
Hmm.
and they see my resume in a stack of 50 others or down to the last 10 or whatever. And so I want them to just see, okay, he's capable of doing this movie. And then they meet me. And then they go, oh, and I can see it in their face. They go, oh, they didn't realize I was a brother who they just didn't know. They just see that I did a lot of varied projects. And that's what that's always been my advice to people is, you know, don't pigeonhole yourself ever. Don't put yourself in the box because people are going to put you in the box or try to, but don't put yourself in the box, you know?
Right. I definitely understand that. Um, as many as many people who follow me and know me know that I have a background in law enforcement, and I did a lot of security work, still do, and working on a set is my least favorite security job. I mean, really, the hours are just really long, and the whole time I'm there, I look at my watch. I'm like, when are they going to quit? They don't know how to stop. And so how many hours a day do you typically work when you're on a set?
I mean, generally speaking, it's a 12-hour day. This is pre-COVID. It's generally a 12-hour day. It does get extremely expensive after that. Um, Typically, lower budget films have lesser experienced crew, so they end up in situations where they find themselves going longer hours. Um, the studio pictures that I generally work on these studio movies, um, people are our age group. We don't want to work 14 hours, 15-hour days. No one does. So, big part of my planning is planning the day's work out properly so that we're not all killing ourselves. Because I know that I get a better product out of the crew that's fresher when
Mhm.
people are alert. I'm not tired and overworked. And also, we have to deal with a thing called turnaround. So if you shoot, you have to give the Screen Actors Guild actors a 12-hour turnaround. So if I shoot till 8 p.m. at night, I can't start before 8 a.m. in the morning, right? So if I drag my day every day, and instead of wrapping at 8, I wrap at 11, well, I'm starting after 11 the next morning. And actually, that's for them arriving. So I might be starting at 12 or 1.
Wow.
And by Wednesday, you're coming in the afternoon. By Thursday or Friday, unless you have night work, you're screwed.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important to keep your day within that 12-hour day or less if you can afford it, so that you can keep your turnaround if you're shooting day exterior. And I shoot a lot of location work. When you get to doing stage work on a sound stage, you have the luxury of shooting when the sun goes up or down or it rains or it doesn't matter, but you still have the turnaround issue. So your crew is going to be tired, and it's not beneficial to you to do that. So, you know, that's my answer to that.
And as I mentioned, I've been on several, quite a few sets. And first ADs are generally my least favorite people on the set. Very demanding. They have a certain characteristic, business minded, no fluff, just constantly doing, their job. And they seem like they have a lot on their mind. What are the basic characteristics of a first AD?
I mean, the thing about my job, which is always interesting to me, is that the prop master, he just has to bring the prop in for the scene. The sound guy, he has to record the sound for the scene. But I have to remember what every department has to do. I have to remember what every department is, what each scene needs from every department. And I have to think about, everyone has issues. There are things like, in order to do this next scene, it's a special effect. They need an extra hour of prep to do it. So I can't do that in the morning because I know that I'm going to lose an hour just of getting that ready. So I am given all this information continually as the day's going, including the star has to leave, there's a plane coming for them, or a limo is going to pick them up, and all these little issues that no one else is even aware of that I have to factor into my 12-hour day. So for me, I'm always thinking of everything. I'm thinking of the day's work, tomorrow's work, the week's work, the month's work. I'm thinking of the whole project. And that's why typically first ADs feel, it seems like they're always going, because you literally have to. It's a level of concentration that I have to have at all times. I mean, I get up if my call time is 8, I'm up at 5:30 every morning, and I'm going over what I'm shooting today. I'm thinking about the week. I'm thinking about all these issues, and I know all the problems, and I try to anticipate as many of the problems as I can before they become problems, and head them off. And even I have an army of people working for me. I have all the second ADs, PAs, interns, trainees. I probably have about 10 to 15 people under me, and I'll be telling them things, and I'll say, hey, what about that truck that just pulled up? And no one saw the truck. And I know there was a tree trimmer that just pulled down a block, because I'm literally aware of everything. And it's fun, but it can be stressful for some people. It can be, but I like it.
So after the day is over, are you finished? Or, let's say you're finished with your whole project. How do you unwind when you come home? I mean, do you have to kind of relax, or do you just go back into the same mode? I mean, well, what do you do when you get home?
Okay, so if I'm still shooting day to day, it's not easy to unwind from it. I do try to go home. I try to make my phone calls on my drive home and deal with whatever the next day's work. I try to do that before I actually leave the set. I have a meeting with my staff before I walk off the set to just recap what we're doing tomorrow, what we're starting with, and get that out. Typically, that's usually enough. Sometimes I might have an extra call or something, but generally, most people leave me alone. I get my rest at night. When I finish the project, I I probably drive my family a little bit crazy because I'm a workaholic. Um, I'm always reading scripts for the next show. There's always like 3 or 4 scripts that I have to read or I have to get through to make decisions for what I'm going to do next. I mean, I'm reading scripts right now into next year's work.
Wow.
So I'm always reading scripts and always looking into that. So that's something that I try to every night. I'll say, okay, tonight I'm going to read this other script, or tomorrow I'll read the other script, or um, so it's a little bit tough. But when I finish a movie, I definitely do nothing but spend time with my wife and my kids. That's it. I literally sleep in, I get up, I make breakfast, I make pancakes, I wear flip-flops and shorts. I don't do anything. I don't do anything.
Okay. So are you the same person at home as you are at work? Do you have to assume a certain role when you're at work?
I probably am a little bit, and I know it drives my family crazy a little bit. And I'm sure if they were on here, they might be in tears telling you I'm terrible. I probably am a little bit. Here's what I know I do when I'm at home is I'm over aware of every detail, and I know my wife will tell me that doesn't matter here,
Right.
But I'm just aware of every little detail, and it's really been built up from years of doing this, because for what I do for a living, if that car doesn't have gas or they don't have the keys in their hand, then I'm gonna have to do another take. And mistakes like that lead to time, and time leads to money and extra time and all that. So I'm just aware of all these little details. So I have a hard time turning that off. I do.
Does your wife tell you often that she doesn't work for you?
She doesn't tell me that often because I learned that lesson a long time ago when I made the mistake of assuming she was like the craft service department, and she's like, I don't make banana and peanut butter sandwiches. Yes, she's reminded me that, but I don't do that anymore. That's been a key to long living marriage. I've been married for 32 years. So
wow, that's great. So when you arrive on a set, what's the first thing that you look for?
When I go to a set, so back up, before we show up to shoot, I've gone to that location multiple times. I've scouted it. We picked the location. We've gone back with the technical crew. We've done tech scouts and all that. So during the pre-production phase of picking locations, I will give my pros and cons on those location picks. This location's too exposed, it's near a freeway, it's a noise condition, you got flight patterns going overhead, you're near school, you got kids getting out at 3 o'clock, it's going to be crowded. I try to think of all these things before we say we're going to shoot at this location, and I try to bring them all up during the pre-production. So then when we show up on the day, the start off the day is dealing with the location, the site rep, the city, the police, and sort of letting them know and reiterating what we are doing, what our plan is, where my company is going to be, and make sure we're all safe, and that the city knows, we're going to take over the town square and this is what we're shooting, and where I need my production assistants to lock up and all that. And generally I go over the overview of what our day looks like, and then I disappear and go back to the camera and get into the shots. But I really try to do a lot of extra effort into what the plan is and what the overall plan is, and that we stick to the plan.
Now, every set has its challenges. I watched Coming to America, and I was very excited about the movie. Did you have any challenges with that movie?
Talent scheduling. Biggest challenge on that movie. Talent scheduling. You think about all the people from Leslie Jones to
right,
all those people who were not just standing around waiting to work 24/7, and they all have a million other things going. Comedians, they're all stand-up comedians, and Rick Ross and all these people. They're all big in their own right? So
right.
the challenge for me was scheduling all of those people and locations, physical locations that aren't just available. So that's the challenge that I have to deal with. It's like a huge 3D puzzle of availability, when you can shoot at this street, when you can go to that location. You can't shoot here in the afternoon. You can't shoot here in the mornings. Um, you've got Eddie's schedule. Eddie was not the biggest schedule issue,
Mm-hmm.
but he's not going to work the most hours, and when you get down to the makeup, for example, all the barbershop work,
Right.
he played all those characters. So each character that he played was a day of work in itself for that one scene. So those 2 scenes took us almost 2 weeks to shoot.
Wow. Yeah. No, yeah, I heard that on social media that there was a problem with Dave Chappelle with his scheduling. Is that true?
No, it wasn't really. It wasn't a scheduling problem. I think the biggest issue, because we did, everyone, Eddie likes Chappelle a lot, and Chappelle wanted to be in the movie. Everyone wanted him to be. Everyone was open to it. We were open to doing whatever it took to put him in the movie. But when it came down to it, yeah, he had other things going on. He's just a very busy man, and he couldn't turn off his schedule to be in ours. At a certain point, there's got to be some give and take, and I think it just came down to it. It just wasn't going to work. The one person that there was one other actor, the guy who was the Soul Glow boyfriend from the first one.
Yeah, I remember him.
He is a TV director in Chicago, and he was working, and we couldn't get him to quit his job to come and be in our show for one scene.
Oh, wow.
So it just didn't work out.
One of my favorite movies was Dolemite Is My Name.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Did you come up with any challenges from that movie?
No, that was a fun movie. We had a great time making it. We were all over LA. It was my first time with Eddie,
Mm-hmm.
and there were some initial fears that he didn't want to work far away from his house.
Oh.
And we had literally just completed all of our scouting, and we were shooting in Whittier and San Pedro and Westlake Village. We were shooting all over LA, and I was like, well, nothing is near his house. Zero. Nothing was in Beverly Hills or in Ventura Boulevard. I mean, nothing. So that was the first worry. And then it wasn't as big. Most of the things that came up initially as big fears and worries all went away pretty quickly, and he was open. He was fine. And he was good. He showed up, and he was a hard worker. Eddie's a hard worker, and he's funny.
Now, you had mentioned earlier that you worked on Love and Basketball. I saw Love and Basketball in 2000,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't have kids then, and I wasn't married, and I really enjoyed. That was one of my favorite movies. And then 15 years later, when my daughter started playing basketball, we watched it together, and it was a great film. And my daughter and I bonded on that film, and I really loved that film. What was it like working on that film? And also, too, was it kind of special to you? I know you grew up near the area, and also you were a basketball star in high school. So was it kind of
a
a
star?
personal?
I did play basketball. I appreciate that, though.
You're a star.
I played.
You're a star.
I played, brother. I was good in practice. Put it that way. No, look, it was a fun movie. It was in my neighborhood. We shot all over Windsor Hills, Baldwin Hills. We shot at Crenshaw High School.
Now,
the odd thing is,
when you were in high school, didn't you play against Crenshaw?
Yeah, we played against Crenshaw. You mean we lost Crenshaw?
Right. They were power.
We lost really quickly. In the first quarter, the game was over.
So did that bring back memories?
No, it was different because we were. It brought back memories only when we scouted it. But I got to tell you, even Westchester, because we scouted Westchester too. But the schools nowadays, and I don't know about, I'm saying nowadays, in 2000, were rather bleak looking compared to when we were going to school. And even I think right at the time, Crenshaw had lost its accreditation as a high school, which I was like, I remember we were walking around scouting it, and they were It had just hit the news. And so that was kind of sad. The other thing is Gina, the director, she went to UCLA. She played basketball, and she really wanted to shoot at UCLA. And they wouldn't let us shoot at UCLA. For some reason, we couldn't shoot at UCLA. So we had to shoot at her rival school at USC for all the college work, which I think was just really painful for her. And then ironically, I did the movie How High, which was just, you know, brothers who smoked their buddies' ashes
Right.
in some weed and get into Harvard. And we shot that at UCLA. So I was like, well, what was the criteria for shooting? Because clearly it had nothing to do with the content.
Right.
But no, Omar was great and Sanaa was great. I've seen Sanaa multiple times since then, and no, it was interesting.
So when you were a kid, were you a movie buff? You know, did you sit and watch films all day, watch movies, or like going to the movies? What you know?
I like going to the movies. I wouldn't say I was a film nerd or anything like that. I liked movies like most kids. I went to the blockbusters. I saw, you know, Star Wars, and I saw Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and all those movies. And honestly, I never thought of movie making as a job, especially as a kid. It just was one of those things that I always felt like unless you're from that, it's not going to happen. I never really thought of it like that.
When did you start looking at movies differently? Trying to look, or do you do that now? When you watch a movie, do you try to?
It's impossible. It's impossible now to watch a movie. I know where they've shot it. I'm looking at the crew, the back. I can see. I know too much actually, so I have to watch them. Either the script is really good, or I'll watch it 3 times before I really just ignore everything about it and say, "Oh, this is a good movie." And it's hard to watch a movie for me.
And how long?
I have access to every movie that I get every movie every year. I can from the Academy Award screenings and everything, and I'm just like, maybe I'll go watch it or not.
Now, how long were you in the industry before you became that way? Was it a slow, gradual process, or it was just like after you just, you know,
after about 10 years? It's after about 10 years. It you know, for me,
yeah, it gets really hard.
It's been 30 years.
So, what is your favorite movie?
My favorite movie that I worked on, or my favorite movie?
Your favorite movie that you've seen? That you've watched?
I still love The Godfather. Great movie. I like The Shining. I like a lot of Kubrick's movies. I like Goodfellas. Great movie. I haven't really done many mob movies. Those are like the movies that jump out. I've seen Wall Street probably 20 times.
And what grabbed you about that movie?
I don't know. I think at the time when it first came out, I was in business, and I just liked that, you know, that shark going after prey every day. You got to get up early. You just got to eat or be eaten kind of mentality. And I really liked that about that movie. And then, you know, I liked it. And I love, you know, the Goodfellas, and it's a great movie. Godfather, all those movies. I don't know what it is about them, but not that I have a killer streak in me or anything like that, but I do like those movies.
Now, when you get called to do a movie and you hear about it, do you get excited, or is it just business as usual? Has any movie, you know, just excited you from the beginning, or it's just like work?
I try not to get excited, mainly because I don't know what's really going to happen. And I've had movies over the years just not happen, you know? So I'll read a script and I'll be excited about it. And sometimes I feel like if I'm excited about this one, then it's definitely not going to happen. So I'm just kind of open on all of it. I read a lot of scripts. Some of them I like, oh, I'd like to do that. Oh, this one, not so much. But again, I just don't know what's going to happen. You just don't know, because I'm involved in the projects way before they actually go into production half the time. And it'll be 6 months or a year or sometimes a year and a half where I start hearing about the project, and then I may do a schedule for somebody or help do a budget for somebody, and then I don't know if it's going to ever happen. Sometimes it's like do a budget schedule and then it goes right into production. Sometimes you never hear about it again. So it's hard for me to get emotionally attached to it because I just don't know.
So everyone in LA has a screenplay either on their computer or in their closet. What about you? Do you have one? Do you have several?
I've written, yeah, of course I have. I've written a lot, and but I learned also, and this is a reality that I've told myself, and I try to tell other people, is that for all the scripts that just I have, right, that I would like to make one day, and you go to a production company that's actually in the business of making movies, because there's a lot of them that aren't making a lot of projects. But let's say you go to that one company and they're making 5 movies a year, and they have 10 executives. And those 10 executives have 5 to 10 projects that they each want to make. And then they get an actor, Will Smith, for example. But then Will's got 10 projects that he really wants to make. So that shifts the powers. Now, it's more important what he wants to make. So your project, if you're not even working in that group and you bring them the script, pretty small chance that they may even read it at all, right? There are situations you hear where I think there was one story. What's the actor's name? Denzel. Denzel was driving in to some lot every day, and I guess there was a guy at the gate talking to him on a regular basis about something and talking to him about some story, giving him little snippets of it on a regular basis. And then I guess Denzel's making a script about it, a movie about it. Super rare. That's like winning the lottery rare. It's that kind of rarity. But there's just so many projects. You got to understand, most of the studios already have all these projects that they bought and they're holding on to, and they're just trying to figure out, are we going to lose money on this? Or are we going to actually make it? And there's like, someone had a photograph of a production office, and it was a room. Imagine a 15 by 10 room full of screenplays almost to the ceiling. And it said screenplays that were not read yet. Wow. Right? So it's kind of bleak. And so a lot of times you'll hear packaging and people will be talking about, I have a project, but I already have Denzel attached. He wants to play the lead. Now people will listen to you. So the more elements, and he's like a major element, right, to getting that movie done. So the more elements a person has and the script is good, or the more chance that someone will read it and possibly help you get it done. But if you just go in blindly with just an idea, because again, as you just pointed out, everyone's got a lot of ideas. There's tons of great ideas. And there's some really great ideas for stories, but the scripts aren't great. And that's another thing, is that people will say, I love the idea for this story, but who's going to write it? And that might take 3 years to develop that script into a story that's actually a good script. And some people don't have the effort, and the executives come and go. I mean, there's executives, they're here today, they're gone tomorrow. That happens all the time. So you can't, it's just a screenwriter's dilemma, I guess. I wouldn't want to do, look, some of them are very fortunate and lucky. And once you sell that one script for $1 million or whatever, now people will start listening to you and wanting to hear what you got. And again, I've known people who were writers on a script and the movie became successful, and then suddenly they got a lot of money to write another script, but they again had 5 of their other scripts that they really wanted to make. And so that's what they spend the last 8 to 10 years trying to get one of those made. And sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't.
Lastly, because I know you're busy and you're probably at work right now, What advice would you give someone who wants to be an assistant director?
Well, I think that I feel to be an AD, you have a couple choices. You can try to join the Directors Guild as a trainee. They have a trainee program. It actually helps being a minority or a female. But I think for anyone else, I feel like you have to start off at the bottom, which is a production assistant, and you have to push yourself to learn everything when people aren't going to be trying to teach it to you. You have to learn the paperwork. You need to learn the Screen Actors Guild rules, the union rules, the Teamster rules, the IATSE. You want to learn all those rules and regulations because that's a marketable skill. Down the line, when you're on a project and you're standing there and someone says, well, I don't know, can we come in tomorrow at 9 o'clock? And if you're the one that says, no, you can't because the turnaround is XYZ or the Teamsters need to do this, then they go, oh, who is that? Who's told us that? That became a skill set that was marketable. And then, I've had PAs over the years who they have a lot of talent. They can talk to a crowd. They know how to get a crowd moving and doing things. And they're setting the background and the extras in the scene, but then, or the picture cards in the scene, and there's the lockups, but then there's other things. And so you might have to help get the talent. In the morning, you might have a lot of cast members like I had on Coming to America. You have a lot of cast members and a lot of extras and a lot of people that go through fittings and wardrobe and hair and specialty makeup and all that, which is hours and hours and hours of work. And so you have some people who I've met over the years who will be like, well, that's all I do, or I only do this, or I only do that. My advice is do whatever you need to do and learn all of it, because I did background, I ran first team, I did lockups, I've done whatever I've had to do, and I pushed myself to learn it because, and that's why I work all this. That's why I'm where I am, and I could literally stand on a set and tell people, well, I know how long it takes to hang that light because I've done that before, and I know what the sound guy does. I've done boom before, and I can do that, and I know when I ask, we got 20 minutes to get this shot, I know we can do it in 20 minutes. If I wouldn't say we can do it in 20 minutes if I had no idea. And I'm not just guessing it. Like I literally have done it,
Mm-hmm. Well, that's great. That's great advice. I appreciate you coming on the show. This was a great interview. And, hopefully you can come back again and we can talk about some other things in the industry.
Maybe I'll see you in person.
Yeah. Maybe we can do something.
I should be home in a week.
So. Okay. All right, man. Well, thanks a lot.
All right, Brian.
All right.